really happy to be here. So I'm based in San Francisco, and I just love it down here. When I got off my plane, I was just like, wow, I need to move down here. But I'll see Eaze through. I did for a moment early on try to get us to relocate, believe it or not. But LA is a huge market. That's tons of potential there. We should just move the business down there to Santa Monica or Pasadena or anywhere down here. My brother lives down here. He lived in Pasadena for several years. He's a USC guy, and he went to UCLA, so he's got some internal conflict. But he's one of the most brilliant people I know. And yeah, so that's me. I grew up in north of San Francisco, about an hour north, and really always wanted to do advertising. So just like a quick personal background, I always loved commercials. So I'd watch commercials, and they make you feel something, right? That really well done commercial that makes you actually feel something. That's what got me interested in marketing at a young age, and from there I kind of like self-taught graphic design, self-taught, ad copywriting, all those things, and went to school, and then I just got into startups and I got that bug, and many of you probably had that same one where it's just like starting at that ground floor and helping a company define itself and really execute against its vision is what I care about. So there's my quick introduction, and I'll talk to you guys about Eaze and why it's why we think that what we're doing is really important, and kind of how we're approaching it and the things we're doing. So at any point, you guys can, I don't mind if you wanted to ask questions, but we do have a more formal QA structure at the end, so I'll kind of go through. But yeah, that's me. This is a picture of somebody using Eaze. So kind of in my more professional career, let's call it, how did I get into this type of stuff? And I can take you back to 2009 when I started working at Catalyst, which was an agency that we basically helped people build brands. It was one of the coolest companies that I got the pleasure of working on was actually Ubercab. So this guy Ryan Graves shows up. Now he's the COO. At the time, or he's the head of expansion or something. He's for supply growth. I don't know, some really big title at Uber. And he was then a marketing manager, and he's in our office, and I got to meet him and sit down with him and talk about basically how do you define what Ubercab does for people into like a boilerplate. And so this was like one of my first experiences in the marketing environment for a startup. And wow, this guy was amazing, I'll just tell you that. He basically did everything in the company, but he then went on and did amazing things. I got to watch that and sort of think, what things from that can I take? And really it was just passion. That was the main thing I saw in him. And that's what I try to take to the companies that I go to. But from there I went on to another startup, BrightRoll. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Then I actually worked at ValueClick later on and helped rebrand ValueClick to Conversant. And you guys might know them because they're based in Westlake Village down here. But that's sort of the companies I worked at. But one day, actually while I was working at ValueClick or Conversant, I actually met Keith McCarty at Disneyland in Anaheim, actually at a bar in downtown Disney. I was there with my family, and we were just like, oh yeah, my dad's like, just get a beer, great idea, let's do that. And starts talking to this guy just about his idea for, to basically build the Uber of weed, he told me. And I looked at him and I just said, that's the best idea at the best time that I've ever heard. And he just looked at me and said, I know. And I said, wow, what are you doing now? He said, oh, I'm the head of sales at App Annie. And I was like, oh, I know them. Like, you must be smart. Yeah, I used to work at Yammer. It was a fourth employee. I helped grow them to over $1 billion acquisition. I looked at him, I said, do you have a marketing person? He said, no. I said, do you know anything about marijuana? He said, not really. I said, perfect, let's talk, So we sneak into Disneyland somehow. Don't tell people that. But actually I watched him do it, and this is one of the reasons why I chose to follow him, is because he was speaking to the people about, basically he talked his way into Disneyland, right? Like, who can do that? That is like a sales skill, right? And that's what you look for a CEO. Like, how do you grow a startup? Well, you need good people, you need a good business model, and you need to be able to raise money. Like, that's such a true thing. I've seen it. And if you have strong leadership and somebody that really can tell that narrative well, then you're gonna raise money. So these things you guys might already know, but just wanted to share that little personal anecdote about how I ended up at Eaze. But what is Eaze? Some of you might know, some of you might not. At a high level, we think about it as on-demand marijuana. And really building a platform that helps people access medical marijuana. So there's two primary products that we have. One is the original Eaze, which is a technology platform that dispensaries use to better manage their delivery business. So that means that basically they upload their products, their menu to a UI that they can then, the drivers use our actual driver app. They get pings, much like an Uber or a Lyft. You would, do that. They do the fulfillment side. We have a routing algorithm we developed that does that piece, and then they, get data and reports on how they're managing, how well they're doing, things like that. So that's like our delivery platform, if you will. And then we have another product that we launched. It's called EazeMD, which is a app, actually the first ever telehealth app. So for patients to be able to meet a doctor for a medical cannabis recommendation. So that's EazeMD, and that launched July of 2015, a year after we launched Eaze. So we've been around almost 2 years now. And yeah, so this is kind of like the business model. How does it work? I kind of talked about it, but really, Eaze is the technology and the technology alone. So the dispensaries basically manage the entire process, which is how the models really can work. And it wasn't like we figured that out overnight. We had to go back and forth. It's a lot of iteration in this type of stuff. As you guys all know, you can have the best idea in the world, but then you run into a wall, and it's what do? Well, you think about ways to get around that wall or over that wall, or dig a hole and come out the other side. But for us, it was, let's just meet with people. Let's meet with local policymakers. Let's meet with proven on-demand delivery startups. So we met with a lot of different companies, from Lyft to Spoon Rocket and Sprig in San Francisco, to Uber, to healthcare companies, and we basically found a way to build a model that is going to be both very helpful for a patient, but also help a dispensary really grow its business. So that's kind of like how that works. And just a quick glimpse, like, why am I here? When we talk about Eaze, we've done it. I would say this is just a bunch of data, start charts. But if you don't know about us, we have raised $12 million in funding, which has been a hard road for us, because it's a cannabis. Although we're an on-demand technology company, it's in the cannabis category. So we're very proud to say we raised over $12 million in funding. Our conversations for our Series B are going well now, and we did that with a good model, again, a good team, and a good really passion for what we're doing. So why Eaze, why now? When I think about Eaze, like the timing, it's really the convergence of several different growth sectors. So you got the on-demand space, I guess I'll talk about marijuana first. So we know that medical marijuana is trending. We know that for the first time ever in 2010, people favor legalization. So if you know anything about history, policy follows public sentiment, right? When people believe something should be changing, typically, it may take a while, but if the majority of people believe it, it will change. And that's what we see with the Gallup poll in 2010. And these are some slides we've taken from our investor presentation, so you guys can kind of see the way we talk about it. But we also know that states are legalizing, right, in various ways. And some of these are projections, but when we look at the developments in the recent years, it's been really at a highly accelerated rate over the last couple decades. Things are happening, right? President Obama signs in a law that feds can't interfere with states. So now you see the local ordinances, and this is really a hotbed for all the public or the legal developments. If you look at like at the LA situation, and the cities are coming, what we call off and on, right? Red or green, depending on their ordinance around delivery. And it's actually the wild, wild west. Like when we go in, we'll sit down with policymakers and talk to them. And like, oh, whoa, we didn't even know like delivery was an option. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's tough to predict exactly what's happening, but when you look, people are starting to have conversations, people are starting to get educated, and at Eaze we believe that it's actually an education thing that's holding back the industry. So you'll see us start to do more in that area. When we look at the market, people always ask, like, what's Eaze focused on? Are you guys going to expand? Are you going to go to Oregon? Are you going to go to Colorado? What's the strategy? Well, when we look at the total market, California is actually 49% of all cannabis sales, even as medical. Shocker! And then we look at like Colorado with 10x in its first year as a recreational market. So we're like, whoa, wait a second, let's think about this. California already half of the market, the national market in just medical dollars alone. So our focus is very much going very deep in California. We want to represent, where we're from and all that, but we also want to, make a big footprint. So that's the sort of the focus is California for now. Although Nevada is very interesting. They have something called reciprocity, where they actually recognize a medical recommendation from other states. It's the only state that does that, where you can bring any rec from any state and Nevada will recognize it. So I thought that was really interesting. So we may actually go there faster. It's actually a little bit outdated now. There's updated projections are even greater. Actually, experts believe that by 2020 it'll be over a $20 billion market. But this is the way we've kind of presented it in the past, and just the growth rates are, we expect the company could grow 40% just on the back of the industry growth alone, and that's us not doing our jobs well, which I'll talk a little bit about like how we do it. So I think I'm spending a lot of time on the landscape, which I actually didn't really plan on doing, but I have all the slides, so I'm just going through them like a robot. When I think about Eaze, like what are we doing? Like, great, yeah, cannabis is an industry, it's growing, but how do you, as a marketing person, as a salesperson, as a product manager, as a UX person, how do you approach your business in a way that is going to help you continue to be a category leader? Because we were first to market. Great, that's a wonderful thing, helped us out. We got Jimmy Kimmel, first day of our launch, put us on the show and said, oh, look, the guy on the website even looks high, and all these other amazing jokes. And I was like, I found that guy on Shutterstock after searching for an hour. Like, thank you for the recognition. So it sounds funny, but if the WordPress guy knows, when you look for those photos for hours, when somebody notices and comments on them, you're happy. But it was Jimmy Kimmel, and I was like, whoa, this company might go somewhere. But that's sort of that. But when I look at the way Eaze approaches what we're doing, it's very fascinating. We have some brilliant people. Our VP of engineering, he's an MIT dropout. The guy is 20 years old, and he's now a VP of data. But I talked to this guy, and you'd think he's like 40-year-old, like mastermind, and you forget that he's so young, because the way he approaches the data, he's like building tables that we can pull into Chartio. I don't know if you're familiar with Chartio, like dashboards and business intelligence visualizations, right? And we're looking at our different segments of users, and we're able to see like retention drops month over month, but products stay ordered that may affect those. Like, we're such a data-driven culture that there's no doubt in my mind that we will continue to be the leader, because what we're doing is so far advanced when you look at other cannabis companies. And the reason I'm talking about this isn't to be self-serving, it's to say that definitely approach your businesses from that perspective, because this company is very impressive to me, and I've worked at very smart companies before, and really our approach is just so data-driven that we're all about testing everything we do. When we do a marketing promotion, we will have at least a single A/B experiment on everything. Subject lines, that's all great, but go deeper, right? Actually carve out 2 different products based on what people have ordered before and send them different promotions and see how they respond. Take a group that's never ordered a concentrate before, send them an educational piece of content and ask them why actually, if they don't order then, why they're not ordering. So what I'm really amazed with, and I'll talk more about, because I think our marketing strategies are actually more interesting probably even than the industry and kind of why Eaze works. But I would say that I'm probably getting ahead of it. I guess, would you guys rather me talk more about on-demand? Do you guys want me to talk more about like the different things that we're doing? Like, are you guys pretty already up to speed on on-demand economy stuff, or is that helpful for me to go through?
I think more of like the challenges of you being in an industry that is restricted.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, and I appreciate the back and forth, because I want to make sure it's as interesting as possible for you guys. So the landscape, right? As a marketer, when we first created a marketing plan, we had about 80% of the things in there we ended up not being able to do. So that you can think about AdWords, can't do it. Facebook, can't do it. Instagram got my account shut down 5 times. So that's the kind of the what I tell people is 80% of the things we want to do we can't. But there's things we can do, and we get creative, right? So think about, what do you know about the industry? Well, if you know anybody who is a passionate cannabis advocate, they will tell you everything about why it's beautiful and how it was grown and the different ways to ingest, and they're generally pretty passionate. So how do you zero in on that passion and give them a platform to share that with others and also support your business? Well, that's the ambassador program, we call it. And the ambassador program is much like other programs that you see from startups, with people get basically a promotional code, and then they go and share that code and they get an incentive. Well, basically we build that type of referral platform into the product, and we service that all over the place. We call it Buds for Buds, and that thing is, that's a couple came up with that one at Space Mountain, believe it or not. And I was so happy we kept it. I was like, yeah, that's great. But Buds for Buds is amazing. It's basically the primary growth driver of the entire business, and it's people referring their friends. And it's simple, but if you can achieve those type of network effects, you can grow a business alone on that, and it's been amazing for us. But we also do offline ambassador, almost outside of the product. We have people out in the streets promoting, and we don't tell them to, hey, give people free credits. We tell them, hey, educate them about the medical benefits, because we find that people are more likely to sign up for our service if they are educated and if they understand the differentiators and if they understand the benefits of cannabis. And that's really key, and I think that's what you'll start to see us do more and more. And I'll kind of gloss over the on-demand stuff, but what I was going to say here is basically on-demand companies are on the rise. People love things instantly. People are getting used to that, so that's one of the reasons why Eaze can work. Mobile healthcare is also on the rise. 1.3 billion raised in this sector already. There's some of the companies. We also think about what makes an on-demand company successful. High frequency of use, ability to be agile on the supply side, and naturally social. You can think about it like if you don't have enough drivers on the road and the delivery times are over an hour, people aren't going to use your service. So you got to be able to be agile enough to like ramp up on drivers. But your service needs to be used a lot, right? If someone only orders once a month, then you're not going to end up making a profitable business. But if they order maybe weekly or every 9 days, like every 9 to 14 days is what we see, then you can start to build a better business on that. Naturally social too, that's the key piece, I think, of Eaze. I think the naturally social element, people want to share, people want to talk about what they see and what they're experiencing. So I wanted to just kind of quickly say the quote from Keith, because this is what I was getting to. It's the social element. It's this more social responsibility side. When I say, he spoke at South by Southwest, and he basically, my favorite quote from him is, our mission is to end prohibition and ensure safe access. And in a nutshell, that's not easy to do, but you can do that with technology. And that's really what we're focused on building, is the tools that help people get safe access. And why, right? And everybody, I hope that you guys have heard stories and understand the medical benefits of cannabis, because they're real. Sometimes it's like, oh, but it's not really medical, right? People say that to me a lot, actually. But it's not really medical, right? And I'm like, no, it really is. You just don't know yet. It's not. We're not educated enough to in society today, and we need more people to step up and lead that education. So one thing we believe is marijuana helps. We've decided that we want to invest from a marketing perspective in education. So you'll see more from Eaze on this front, where we actually are asking people to share their stories, and we're putting those stories to the forefront. And I'll give you an example. We do these weekly promotions and newsletters just like most companies do. And this kind of gets back to like, what do you do in a restricted market? Well, you have to really engage your audience and ask them to help build your brand. So what we said was, hey guys, if medical marijuana helps you or someone you know, tell us. Like, please tell us your story. thousands of emails, boom, right back to us. Within 2 days, we had 3,500 emails with novels, heartfelt stories from people. Some people, yeah, sure, they said, it helps me sleep. And maybe you throw that out, like, oh, but wait a second, that's powerful too. Then you got this one about a guy who basically, his life was saved from medical marijuana because he was actually an alcoholic and it was ruining his life. And his brother said to him, his stoner brother, he said, my brother was a stoner my whole life, and he told me to try it, and I never trusted him. But one day I did, and because everything, he had hit rock bottom, changed his life. Stories like that, there's hundreds in there around epilepsy and children with epileptic seizures that are basically stopped in their tracks by medical cannabis. So those stories aside, there's what I call the gray zone, which is I'm really excited about, is as we continue to learn more about these more therapeutic benefits and put those to the forefront, I think you'll start to see that shift in public consciousness when we move more quickly. Because, you know, I had surgery on my Achilles tendon, for example, and I was able to get off of painkillers within 24 hours of my surgery because of THC CBD oil. And I stand by that, and I tell people that story, and people come back to me with a million other stories. So just wanted to kind of quickly talk about that side of the business, because if you don't know about these benefits, definitely look into it, and feel free to sign up for Eaze too. We'll tell you these stories as well. Now, this is just one of the ones that was sent to me about back pain, and I think this is a really interesting trend you'll see, is moving away from prescription drugs to cannabis. So I expect we'll get a lot of friction from some certain parties. You know, we don't think it's going to be an easy road to do what we want to do, but we want to do it, so we're going to do it. Here's a story of a woman with MS, and she told us this. They're not real pictures of the real people, out of privacy, of respecting the privacy. But you'll see that a lot of these people do want to be on camera, and we'll start to do that. And I think that's what I'm getting at, is with responsibility, and like, how do you do that? Like, oh, Jamie, it's not enough to say you're going to tell those stories. How do you do it? Well, we partner with the best of the best. So Tusk Ventures is the group that helped Uber win in New York, right? You heard when they had a big oppression there from the mayor. They basically, within the product, were able to ask the users to send an email, like de Blasio mode, if you remember that. It was like, enter de Blasio mode, and if they went into that mode, it said, no Ubers available. So there's like, oh, if you don't like this, email the mayor and tell them to keep Uber. So like thousands of emails go into the, you know, and we've already been doing that, by the way. We call it, it's our public policy initiatives, right? We actually do that. When Eaze is unavailable, you'll see if you're in your area, in the product, it will say, like, do you want to contact your local policymakers? And people can do that, and people do that, which is one of the ways we're getting involved. But anyway, I think that's really the main things I wanted to cover. I'll go back for another minute and talk about the other channels that we use to grow the business. So, you know, it's really interesting. We're starting to just recently get more platforms that are willing to take cannabis ads. So I'm really excited about that, actually. So we start to talk to people like Snapchat, for example, and Snapchat's like, hey, you know, we're really interested in getting some cannabis ads on here. The local muni buses in San Francisco are like, yeah, we love it. Like, this is great. And then even local, like OC Weekly even just came to me, and we're building out an entire cannabis like network for companies like you guys. So it starts to take me back a little bit, but because just a year ago, again, it was 80% no, and now I would say it's getting closer to 60%. So there's a lot of different things that we're doing. I think that we think hyper-relevant events are important. I think things like this are actually really interesting for us, like a meetups, getting in front of people. We think that it's not enough to focus on the cannabis group, the existing people with cannabis cards, for example, but you need to actually define the new normal and help people see that there are benefits that are not, you know, what people traditionally associate with stoners, right? So with that, I want to say, so tomorrow, we're actually going to be sponsoring the 420 games in Santa Monica, which is why I'm down here. One of the reasons why I'm down here. And I was like, it's perfect. And 420 games is awesome. Basically, it is a group that was founded by a guy named Jim McAlpine. He's a big skier. And he believes that that there shouldn't be a stigma around cannabis use. So he built this to show that athletes are cannabis users as well. So if you'd like to see some people in action and help destigmatize what it is to be a cannabis user, please join us. Eaze is one of the premier sponsors, and we've always loved this group. And we'll be at there. We'll have tents out there. There's a bunch of companies. There's a couple NFL athletes that will be there representing Ricky Williams and Kyle Turley. Little giggle back there. But yeah, there's also going to be some skaters and stuff. But it's a 4.2 mile run walk, but it'll be cool. And then you have Steve D'Angelo, one of the CEO of Harborside, which is one of the largest dispensaries, will be there talking about his experience, pushing the industry forward. So yeah, there's a lot of ways you can work with us if you guys are interested. I want to chat with you about anything you want to chat about. I hope this was interesting. We are looking for people to join our community. There's various ways you can do that. You can be an investor. You can be a business development partner. You can be an ambassador and work with our team of more or less promoters and advocates. You can join the company, right? We have some people based down here. If you guys have some skills that would benefit us, we are looking to hire some engineers and all that. So, as well as marketing people, as well as product people. So come engage with me. If you guys do want to show up at the 420 games, I'm gonna send a bunch of gear down. So I don't have a ton of shirts and stuff right now, and I just was planning for the event and forgot. But I'm gonna bring stuff and I'll ship it here, so you guys have a bunch of stuff. If you guys want to represent the brand, we really appreciate it. And with that, kick it back to Mike for some Q&A. I hope that was what you wanted to hear.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jamie. That was actually a really insightful presentation. I'm sure there's so much more to it. It sounds like you really know the product inside and out, and we love the passion, and I think you guys are actually doing something really interesting, which is advocacy for what's really capable, what's really out there. I mean, I'm a fitness professional, and I think that it is a really, really viable way of people resolving problems that are otherwise left to hard drugs that, for example, the pain resolution and whatnot, and epileptic seizures and insomnia. A lot of people are actually taking prescription drugs, and it has side effects. And marijuana, to an extent, has a lot less. So I think that's awesome. We're going to open it up to Q&A right now. This guy's got a question in the back. Just real quick, the usual format. It's questions only, comments, save it offline, and Jamie will hang out. We can talk to him afterwards as well. John's going to walk around with the mic. If you have a question, raise your hand.
Yes. So I'm jotting down notes.
Okay, so look, good presentation and a great service. So I've got a few questions. So on your delivery service, is it a cash credit card? That's part A. Second part of it is, how do you in actual fact then compensate the dispensaries? What's the sort of lag time in terms as a dispensary before they actually get the payment from you? Because it seems you're going to be the financial intermediary, or is it the driver, or how does that work?
It's a good question. So we do not take the cash, one. Eaze is basically paid as a lead generation fee from the dispensary. So the dispensary does all the cash management. It's all cash due to the banking challenges in the industry. A lot of the people that one might consider competitors do accept credit cards. The risk there, though, is high in terms of getting your account shut down and that. And for Eaze, it's important for us to not get associated with those types of parties. We want to keep our reputation strong because we know that the people that are on the right side of that are going to be the ones that are successful. So right now, it's as a user or an Eaze patient, or Eaze user, or a patient of the collective, you pay the collective directly. So the dispensary will do the driver will show up. It's a cash transaction. They take the cash back to the dispensary. The dispensary then does basically a bi-weekly reconciliation with Eaze to give Eaze the lead generation fee.
Is there some sort of means by which the dispensary actually can verify that the person ordering has a card?
Yeah, so Eaze does the verification. There's basically a third-party database that has the numbers, and you can just reference the numbers or call the doctors directly if the numbers aren't checking out. And you can basically, we do all that verification. It's somewhat manual, but we do that to ensure that everybody's by the book, and then the doctors or the drivers will verify on site that the person is the person.
Over here, Jamie.
Yep.
Hey, I enjoyed your presentation. Where do you get your drivers from? And follow-up question would be, was the name of the brand left ambiguous purposefully so you could play in other markets?
Yeah. So, first question about the drivers. So, drivers we find in a variety of ways, but from an advertising perspective, we typically it's through Craigslist ads. So the dispensaries will post the Craigslist ads. We'll write the copy for them, help them on that side of the business. But there's mostly Craigslist, and then the dispensaries themselves usually have a friends and family network that they usually tap first. But we also go to through our user base, which now that we have that sort of viral aspect within the product and people sharing with friends, you start to see that you can do one email to your users, and then you'll get back 100 driver applicants or more in the area. So it's it's pretty cool. Yeah. The other question is on Eaze, the name, the branding. So we originally chose the branding partly to be generic, but also we saw the long term as being an on-demand healthcare delivery service. So we didn't focus on green, we didn't focus on leaves, we didn't focus on any of that, even though the presentation had some leaves in it. But the branding, if you look at us, we try to be clean and minimal. We try to keep the unexpected colors that are more healthcare associated, things like that. But yeah, Eaze, I think Eaze we chose it because we felt like it had a lot of ways you could use it. And that type of ambiguous, we have a lot of opportunity for growing.
Over here.
So I'm curious, as an on-demand kind of startup, not so much on the regulatory side, but just getting an on-demand startup going, what would you say is your biggest challenge from just biggest challenge? And then secondly, what was your biggest cash burn? May not have been your biggest challenge, but what was your biggest cash burn in that early startup?
The biggest challenge for us was probably finding the right partners. I think that a dispensary partners. It's and really learning what that right partner looks like. So we found that it was pretty high churn in terms of partners, and usually because they couldn't scale, because we had this new model of new growth rates that people haven't seen before. So you're basically building a couple businesses in one in a lot of ways. So operationally very complex. So I would say that's our biggest challenge is on the operations side. And fortunately we have really strong people, but that was challenging. In terms of burn, I would say in the early days, in the first few months, definitely on the technology side, we had to get a good amount of contractors in.
Say first 12 months.
I would say, okay, first 12 months. Marketing.
Really?
Yeah, it's like credits and such was, we basically learned that, are you familiar with the lift? It's like the Pioneer program. Basically, you give a heavy credit for several use to create a behavior, and once you have that behavior, people feel like they understand the service well. That's something that we learned worked for us too, so that ended up being a big part of it. So I would say between the technology and the marketing, that was our biggest, because we were pretty lean. Like I was the only business resource for 6 months. We were mostly technology. So I built out the operations, business development, worked with the partners, did the marketing, did the customer support, did it all. I know, it's crazy.
Jamie, we've got one last question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hi. So from what I know, most of the medical benefits from marijuana come from CBD, which is not psychoactive. And I browsed your app before coming here, and I noticed that most of the strains are kind of the more THC heavy strains. So what I'm saying is that cannabis users who are using it for medical purposes have different needs than cannabis users who are using it recreationally. And right now in California, those two spaces are kind of the same space. But when we're moving towards legalizing it for recreational use in California, those are going to become different spaces. So what I'm asking is your app geared towards medical marijuana, or is it geared towards recreational marijuana, or are you trying to gear it towards both?
Totally. And we want it to be both, right? Like, we want it to be basically provide the needs, meet the needs of the patients in general. So when I look at it, I actually think that we do have too few CBD products today. That's one thing I personally am always pushing for. Unfortunately, Eaze does not control the menu. We can't really require certain things because it's not, we are a technology platform, but we do push partners to put certain products on the menu. So I would say a lot of the products that you see are driven by actual surveys that we send to users and what they ask for and what they want and what they purchase. But certainly we need to be doing more on CBD stuff. And when you ask about the future and what we'll be doing, I think what you'll see is there'll be consolidation in the market where people that are manufacturers will start to take on investment, will partner with companies that are doing it the right way, and then you'll have like the products that meet the standards and the needs of the people. So it'll actually be a more consistent menu across the whole state, whereas today it's more dependent on the collective and their relationships. So the short answer is yes, we want to make sure to provide I wouldn't call it medical and recreational products, but I would call it the whole gamut of products that people want or need. Because although CBD is primarily known as more medical because it's not psychoactive, THC does have medical value, and CBD is only at its max effect in terms of medical benefit when it has THC present. So there's a synergistic effect of the two. So I would say, but I understand where you're coming from, and I would say that's one thing I personally want to do is make sure we do have more sort of pure medical products on the menu.
Excellent. Thank you for your questions, guys. Cool.